I'm an illustrator. It's what I do for a living. People pay me to draw things, and then I do. Pretty straightforward stuff. Some people might envy my power to bring to life visuals that they could only imagine, but trust me when I say that with great power comes great responsibility. I'm not only compelled to draw, I'm obliged to. It is my duty to right the wrongs of the world of illustration wherever they may lie. Pretentious? Perhaps. Entitled? Sure sounds like it. A bit too big for my britches? Well, we'll just have to see. Today's topic of conversation will test my assertion that I'm good enough at what I do to tackle a job that a multi-million-dollar game company has not been able to complete for years. I can already hear long-time viewers groaning in unison. Yup, it's time to once again redesign Shyvana. Let me begin by addressing my previous statements wherein I glazed myself better than a Krispy Kreme donut. I know, the audacity, right? What right have I to say that I'm as good at or better than a team of highly experienced illustration professionals? Well, to be honest, I'm probably not. Scratch that, actually, I'm definitely not. But I do believe that well-founded confidence is a trait that we need to see more of in the artist community. It's all too commonplace to hear choruses of self-deprecation from both professionals and amateurs in my field. I can't think of anything less constructive to the growth of an artist than constantly feeling like you're not good enough. I'd like everyone watching this video, whether you're an artist or not, to take a moment and really appreciate what it is that you do best. Live in that moment and really feel like you're good enough to do anything, even challenge the art team at Riot Games. Are you with me? Can you feel the positivity flowing through your veins? Are you ready to join me in one of this channel's longest running traditions? Good, because we're going to need all the optimism we can get for this project. Today, for the, fourth time, we are going to give Shyvana the visual update that she deserves. I can tell that you're excited to get started, and I have something that's going to get you even more hyped up. Today, we're partnering with Sugoi Mart to bring you a delicious new holiday tradition. Everyone likes to celebrate the holidays in their own way. Some people like sugary treats, others enjoy a shiny new toy. And if these festive customs resonate with you, then you'll love the Sugoi Mart Advent Calendar. 30 days of treats, collectibles, and merch from your favorite official Japanese brands. Sugoi Mart is like a little authentic Japanese import store delivered right to your door. Check this out, a blind box Pokemon figurine, and a really high quality one at that. Now, let me cut you in on a big secret. You don't have to wait until any specific holiday to crack this bad boy open. You can use the Sugoi Mart Advent Calendar to count down any 30 days. 30 days till someone's birthday, 30 days from the day you get yours in the mail, or if you're a real gamer, you can utilize the secret strategy of opening the whole thing in one day and have yourself your own private holiday celebration. And let me tell you, this thing really has everything you need to get in a festive mood. Oh, hell yeah, they have these awesome Japanese Kit Kats. I've had these before, and it's amazing how good a Kit Kat with a third flavor can be. Okay, these I've never seen before. Cute packaging, though. Oh, they're good. What are these? Well, let me just scan this super convenient QR code right here and figure it out. Pandaro cookies. Adorable. Butter cookies with a melon flavor. Now, that is something you can only get from an authentic Japanese snack. This little guide is amazing, by the way. They even list any allergens on here. Should probably read that before you eat the cookies, if you have food allergies. These boxes go fast, unsurprisingly, so if you want to snag one this holiday season, you gotta act now. Something else that's unsurprising is that you can get a 10% discount off of your order using the link in the description and my code, subjectively10. They make amazing gifts, I'm getting one for my sister, and they make an even better self-love treat for yourself. Thank you to Sugoi Mart for sponsoring this video. Now that all of you lovely people know how to get your hands on the good stuff, let's all indulge in our favorite treats as we start discussing the topic of today's video, Shyvana. Most of you watching this video probably know who Shyvana is already, whether it's from playing League of Legends yourself or from watching other videos of ours that we've done on this channel. For those of you who don't know, I'll sum it up real quick. Shyvana is one of over 150 playable characters from the massively popular PvP game League of Legends. The half-dragon of Demacia, this perplexingly purple fighter was hatched from the egg of an elemental drake, yes, just like the ones that you fight in the Botside River. She was raised by a mage, and perhaps it was this influence that gave her the physical appearance of a human, at least for a time. When her birth mother returned to reclaim her lost hatchling, Shyvana was forced to embrace her wild side, transforming back into her true form as a powerful dragon in order to protect the man who raised her. She failed, and it wasn't until she encountered the young prince of Demacia, Jarvan IV, that she was able to enact revenge on her bloodthirsty broodmother. She was able to rescue Jarvan from certain death, and enamored by her strength and valiant heart, the prince appointed her as one of Demacia's chief protectors. She not only felled her own mother in a conflicting battle that sundered her very soul, she continued to slay her own kind in order to preserve the safety of the kingdom to which she felt she owed a debt of gratitude. She struggles to find acceptance within Demacia's walls, as the city is run by paranoid fascists who seek to snuff out magic wherever they find it. Of course, she'll find no warm welcome waiting for her if she ever decides to return to her own people, with every dragon in Valorant knowing her reputation for slaughtering their kind. She is trapped in a prison of prejudice and unfortunate circumstance, with only a handful of people who bother to show her even a mote of kindness. She believes that Prince Jarvan operates with her best interests in mind, but even though he was the only one to ever show her kindness since her father, the hateful eyes of Demacia's people remind her that she has yet to find a true home. Like the rest of League's vast roster, she has a generous amount of lore tying her into the overarching story of League of Legends and the world of Runeterra. Yup, the same world wherein characters like Vi, Jinx, and Ambessa all struggle to find their place. A world of drama, conflict, hatred, and love. A complex world that demands an equal level of complexity from the visuals that describe it. Surprised that this character and these characters are all part of the same story? Well, that's understandable, and it's because, unlike a majority of the League of Legends cast, Shyvana has been around since long before Riot Games had committed such a sizable amount of focus and labor to building a compelling world for their game. Not only that, but she has never been updated to match the current standards of both visuals and storytelling. Because League is such an old game, a lot of the characters from its early years have a very different look to them than their newer cast members. There are a handful of reasons for this, ranging from the limited team of artists and animators they had working for them at the start, to the growth of the game and the evolution of its visual identity. Like all good things, League of Legends has changed a lot from 2009 to the present day. The quality of the game's visuals, music, and storytelling have been elevated by a team of artists so talented that they are quite literally setting the bar for the entire video game industry. I don't think that people give these artists enough credit. The general rhetoric amongst fans whenever Riot announces pretty much anything is, "Boo, this sucks." But I think that what people are trying to say in this echo chamber is that capitalism sucks, and it smothers creativity out of talented people. Between layoffs, lawsuits, and unapologetic cash grabs, the corporate side of League of Legends is ugly, but unsurprisingly so. However, I mean no disrespect to the hard workers who sometimes come in the line of fire between passionate fans and greedy upper management. When I posit the claim that I can do my job better than Riot, I'm not trying to take a dig at the creative team of League of Legends. Riot might be as scummy as any other massive corporation with a bottom line goal of making as much money as possible, but the people they employ to keep their game fresh and relevant are incredibly skilled at what they do. League of Legends and the art that has made it what it is has been and continues to be one of the biggest inspirations to me as an artist. Illustrators like Victor Mari, Jennifer Woosling, and Fortune K motivate me to learn more and improve my own work. I'll answer my own question right now. I can't do better work than these artists. Not yet. But maybe I can bypass the corporate chain of command that limits their full potential and deliver to you all a final product a little bit sooner than anyone who works for a massive company could. Which brings us back to Shyvana and her potential for a VGU, or a visual and gameplay update. For the past 6 years or so, the character design team at Riot Games has been giving a select few characters these VGUs to help them feel more consistent with the modern visuals of League of Legends. Sometimes these VGUs change a lot about the character, not just in regards to how they look and play, but also their story and role in the world of Runeterra. Other times, the changes are more like updates, and the character stays more or less the same, but with new chapters added to their story and a fresh new look to match. Shyvana was passed over for a VGU 4 years in a row, losing in player polls to Fiddlesticks, Volibear, Skarner, and Udyr, all while other champions were also getting updates that, well, to be fair, they did need. It was frustrating to me as a fan of Shyvana both as a concept and as a playable character to see her get snubbed so many times, but at the beginning of 2024, us dragon lovers finally got the news we had been waiting for.
After the Arcane-inspired VGU, we're excited to announce that we'll finally be tackling Shyvana.
She has a great theme and has become an iconic part of the League roster.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
Shyvana was finally getting a VGU. All those years of waiting, and it was about to pay off. We got to see 3 very rough preliminary sketches from the character design team, heard a brief pitch about how they didn't want to change her all too much, and that the final product would ship sometime in 2025. Well, that was in January. 10 months have gone by, and no new news has been revealed about our beloved half-dragon or her VGU. To be honest, this comes as no surprise to longtime fans of the game. Massive overhauls of champions like the one we're expecting for Shyvana take a lot of time, for a lot of reasons. The one that people like to point to the most is Riot's priority checklist. It seems like the people calling the shots at Riot Games insist on devoting their team's time and energy into projects that can turn around a profit first, and then spending time on things like VGUs for less popular champions. There's nothing definitively proving this, but if you look at the kinds of things that Riot has shipped out to fans this year, it doesn't seem all that far-fetched. Now, granted, there are a lot of people working for Riot, though it seems like there are fewer and fewer every day, and just because most of their energy goes into things like the $500 Ari skin, doesn't mean that there aren't artists, writers, and game designers hard at work on projects like the Shyvana VGU. I think a bigger reason why we haven't gotten any updates on the current progress of the Shyvana VGU has more to do with the level of quality that they want to reflect in the final product. Like I said before, a VGU doesn't just change visuals, it also changes story and gameplay, and these elements all have to work in harmony to create a cohesive and exciting character design. Fiddlesticks is my favorite example of a successful VGU, and that took a lot longer than fans thought it would. One of the original 40 champions that launched with League of Legends, Fiddlesticks was originally nothing more than a spirit Halloween decoration, complete with stock voice lines about partaking in generally nefarious deeds and packaged in a stiff, lifeless model with all of the articulate dexterity of a frozen Barbie. After over a year and a half of work, however, Fiddlesticks transformed from a joke to a legitimate horror movie. It's hard to explain if you don't actually play League of Legends, but a Fiddlesticks ult from Off Vision has literally jump-scared me before. I forget for a second that I'm playing a MOBA and instead feel like I'm fighting for my life in a survival horror game. Fiddle's voice got changed from sounding like a motion-activated porch decoration,
"Are you afraid?"
to award-winning nightmare fuel.
"I'm always here, my little hero."
Its existing skins got reworked to make the goofy ones scary and the scary ones terrifying, and its incredibly popular Surprise Party Legendary skin got a new set of voice lines that are so damn well done that they actually made me want to play the champion after years of completely ignoring it.
"Hello, little girl. Not afraid of clowns, are you?"
These changes didn't happen in a day, or a week, or even a year. They took a team of people working together for countless hours to create something that would stand out, something that would make people proud to be fans of League of Legends. They could have cut corners, sure, they could have found ways to get it out faster, but they were afforded the luxury to take their time with the project while other, more superficial additions to the game kept the money flowing and the corporate shareholders placated. My hope, and maybe this is one of those hopes that starts with a C instead of an H, is that they're taking their time with the Shyvana VGU because, well, they're taking their time. I can only speak for myself, but the quality of every VGU that League has produced over the past half-decade has surpassed my expectations. They took their time to create something that was worth the wait, and until I have reason to believe otherwise, I have faith that when we do eventually get an update on the team's project, it's going to be good news. Now, a question that I'm sure a few of you are already asking yourselves or actively commenting on this video is, Jack, why do you even care? Well, that's a question that I've asked myself more than once over the past few years and after the 8th revision of my fan-made VGU. Why do I care so much? This isn't my own character or my own story. I have other projects that I could be spending my time on, from the Enigmorph project to my Observation to Concept series, and of course my ever-popular Pokemon content. Well, I guess the easiest answer is also the simplest one. I love this character. I love her story, the concept behind her design, and the potential that I see for her to become something on par with the incredible modern world of League of Legends. I've been playing her for over a decade now, and my affinity for her role that she plays in the story and in the game has only grown with every passing year. Each year we don't get an official VGU for Shyvana is another year that I attempt to come up with one of my own. And like so many of my other little artistic obsessions, each new installment in what I can only describe as a series showcases just how much I've grown and improved. It's like they're mile markers that denote another new skill I picked up or a new method of approaching a problem. I can look back on the same subject matter I attempted to tackle 5 years ago and compare it to the same subject matter today, and then evaluate clearly what I've improved on and what I still need to learn. In a way, Shyvana has become a part of my identity as an artist. Weirdly, the changes I want to see in her design are a reflection of my own goals to become a stronger illustrator. I hope to one day achieve the level of professionalism and skill that the League of Legends art team has, allowing me to bring my own ideas and characters up to that same standard. This brings us to the here and now, my current and arguably most thorough redesign of Shyvana, the Half-Dragon. I guess you could say this took me 4 years to finish, as it builds off of every previous Shyvana concept I've conceived so far. More realistically, everything I'm going to show you today took about a month, and that includes my rough sketches, my turnarounds, all of the explorations I did for the concept, the dragon form, the finished illustrations of Shyvana, and the concept art for the way I imagined the character to look while in-game. I'll take you through my process and give you an idea of how I approach a project like this, and when we get to the end, I'll let you guys decide if I really can do my job better than Riot Games. We'll start off with concept exploration. Now, as I said before, this stage of the process has technically taken me years to work on. I'm always bouncing ideas around in my head and have been for Shyvana for a long time now. I've already done a video wherein I worked with a few of my friends to create a VGU design for Shyvana, but that was a long time ago. However, a lot of the ideas we came up with in that video are ones I'd still like to build off of. However, with this attempt, I'd like to take a somewhat different approach with Shyvana's story. Ever see concept art of a character that looks wildly different from the final product and think, well, that wouldn't have worked for that character? And of course, you're right. The reason why that wouldn't work is because the writers were trying to design a character to play a role to fit their story, not the other way around. My last few Shyvana VGUs used her existing lore to create visuals that would best represent her story, or rather better represent her story than her current visuals do. But what if Shyvana's story was a little bit different? What would change about how she looked? Another champion who recently received a VGU, Udyr, is a good example of how these changes don't necessarily have to rewrite a character's story. They instead build off of the existing story. It's almost like giving a canonical in-universe explanation for why the character looks different. For this attempt at a VGU for Shyvana, I decided to add on to her official lore with a story of my own. Everything about her origin remains the same, but at a certain point in the timeline, things take a turn for the worse. During the Ruination, when the ruined King Viego spread his influence over every corner of Valoran, Shyvana succumbed to the darkness within her heart. She lost control, and everyone in Demacia was able to see her for what they had always feared she must be, a mindless beast of destruction and chaos. Though these events transpired under unprecedented circumstances, and though after Viego was defeated by the Sentinels of Light, Shyvana returned to her right mind, the people of Demacia had become terrified of their so-called protector. Something had to be done. Under pressure from the general population, as well as the Mage Seekers, King Jarvan IV turned against the woman that he claimed to love. She retained her position as head of the Dragon Guard, but to quell general concerns amongst his people, Jarvan insisted that when she was not on active duty, Shyvana would be banished to a remote tower outside the city limits, chained like an animal within a prison of petricite. She was also sentenced to wear a suit of armor of this magic-absorbing stone in order to suppress her latent powers. This made it difficult, if not impossible, for her to achieve her true form, and over time she struggled to maintain consistent victories over the dragons that she encountered. Finally, after months of isolation and abuse, not only from her foes but from those who she once considered to be her friends, the words of Silas finally began to take shape in her head. She had dismissed them at first when she faced the unshackled mage in combat to defend her city. He had no right to besmirch the names of Jarvan and his people. They were flawed, short-sighted, and perhaps misguided. Surely, though, they were not as blinded by hatred as Silas claimed they were. Now, she knew the truth. She had only managed to escape the bigotry of Demacia for as long as she had remained within the king's favor. Now, at her lowest point, even her closest friend turned his back on her. She was just another mage, another abomination that needed to be locked away or destroyed. She wouldn't let it happen. Jarvan was wrong. Silas was wrong. The fragile-minded people of Demacia were all wrong. She was not just another mage. She was a dragon. An ancient power through which the very essence of Runeterra surged. Their chains would not hold her. Their words could not bind. The might of Shyvana's ancestors ignited in her veins, and the petricite armor began to crack and glow. It had absorbed more magic than it could hold, and the pristine white of the stone began to turn red, like cloth soaked in blood. Her eyes were embers, her mouth an inferno, her claws like the inevitable grip of death. As the tower crumbled, she could feel the chill of the winter air as it spiraled and steamed around her. She was a comet, launched from the earth and into the endless sky. Her ascent could be seen for miles, and the people of Demacia cowered in fear. Good, she thought. If they would make a monster out of me, then a monster they shall have. She took off into the darkness, igniting the sky around her like a hurricane of fire. She would return, and Jarvan would answer for his betrayal. Sorry, everyone, the Jarvan-Shyvana ship is dead. Well, it all depends. I mean, what's a good love story without a little drama, you know? Think about it. How could Shyvana really commit to a man who would persecute her for who she was born to be? Who knows? Maybe Jarvan will see the error of his ways at the tip of Shyvana's molten claws. I did want to leave room for a lot of potential storytelling with this piece. Obviously, this is only the beginning of what would become a great journey for Shyvana, Jarvan, and the people of Demacia. Something in line with the tragedy and theater of Arcane, something that would get fans equally intrigued. The story also opens up the possibilities for a whole new kind of Shyvana, not one subservient to the authority of Demacia, but one who has embraced her true self and is ready to unleash it upon the world that has been so unkind to her. I needed a design to fit this new persona. She had to look wild, untamable, and powerful. In these preliminary sketches, I explore a few different visuals. To be honest, these roughs were done before I had decided on this slightly modified new lore of Shyvana. It was actually one of these sketches that inspired the story, this one here in the middle. I was really just exploring different possible visuals to replace the current one we have for Shyvana, and this one stood out to me. She was so confident, so immovable, and I loved the energy it gave off. I took that rough sketch and decided to refine it. As I worked into it, the narrative I just read to you started to form in my head, and as the story formed, the visuals developed along with it. I made her look more haggard, more rough around the edges, a torn loincloth, cracked armor, and broken chains that hung from her waist. Unlike most of my other Shyvana designs, this one showed a lot more skin, or, well, perhaps scales is the more accurate term. I wanted to convey that she was breaking free of the constraints that this world had bound her to, and her true self was able to show through. Arguably one of the most iconic elements of Shyvana's existing silhouette are her claw-like weapons and horn helmet. Instead of removing these pieces, as I felt like she would have no need for man-made armor or weapons, I replaced them with natural features that elevated feelings of might. Unshackled from the bigotry of Demacia, Shyvana is able to fully express her true power, even when she's in human form. This means she no longer needs metal and stone to aid her in battle. The raw strength, both physical and magical, of her draconic blood is her weapon. Those claws actually took longer to design than I thought they would. I do still like how Shyvana's claw weapons evoke the image of a dragon head, two jaws with one on either arm that when used together can bite down on an opponent. My original sketch had them looking more like extensions of her arms rather than flaming dragon jaws. I really liked the shape that the claw design gave Shyvana's silhouette, however, them just being claws had two major problems. The first being that they robbed her of something that was more dragon-specific. Claws could belong to any number of large monsters or just animals, and we want Shyvana, especially this iteration of Shyvana, to be as draconic as possible. Secondly, and to the same point, it was a little too similar to Udyr, whose glowing fists take on the shape of things like bear claws, tiger claws, and eagle talons. After some time sketching, I settled on a solution that I was happy with. Angular jaws of flames with the top and bottom jaw on each arm respectively. This would make it so that when she fought in her human form, she would still take on the appearance of a dragon. These elemental claws will change though, as you'll see later on in my process. The next step was to figure out colors. In the past, I've experimented with breaking the traditional Shyvana color palette. Shyvana's is a primary color scheme, red, blue, and yellow. Very simple, but effective. The three primary colors play off each other in such a way that they create a lot of contrast, though sometimes too much contrast at too many different points on a character's design can get distracting. Here, Shyvana's traditional colors would remain, but with some tweaks to their saturation and distribution so that important parts of her design would be easily distinguishable. Her red horns, a natural part of her anatomy, would frame her blue face along with her petricite armor, which, if you remember from the story, has turned a similar shade of red. Since the matching red of her horns and armor are among the darkest elements of her palette and her face is among the lightest, they create a striking point of contrast that draws a viewer's eyes up to match Shyvana's gaze. Her hair, much more symbolic and visual in this design than her original form, remains a dark blue. It too frames Shyvana's face with her twin braids hanging down in front of either pointed ear. She has another much longer braid that is almost as long as her body and hangs down behind her. This braid adds to her silhouette the implied shape of a tail. And this is a visual motif that I've used in almost every redesign of Shyvana that I've done. I really hope they do something like this with the official VGU. This braid is more than just a fashion statement, it's another symbol of Demacia's control over Shyvana. Perhaps at another time in her life, Shyvana's hair was allowed to grow wild and free. Now, though it's too unruly and grows too quickly to cut, it's still bound in a tight braid, restricted and confined as Shyvana is. When she transforms into her dragon form, this hair is set free, and I really wanted that to be a big part of the dragon's design. The first hasty sketch I did of Shyvana's dragon form for this project was pretty similar to her current design. Slender, saturated, and somewhat generic. Your standard fantasy dragon with the addition of a thick white braid. This was before I decided to unleash her hair in her dragon form. I did a second render of a dragon form that I actually spent way more time on than I think I needed to. While I don't hate this look, it's basically another updated version of Shyvana's existing dragon form. Granted, I added a few things that I thought were missing, like a functional mouth and some more menacing hardware, but all in all, it didn't really reflect that savage ferocity that I described in Shyvana's story. Now, I actually decided all of this as I was writing this script, after I thought I had finished with all of the illustration work that I was going to do for this project. But I was so happy with the story and felt strongly that this design just wasn't cutting it. I needed a merciless beast, an unstoppable force of nature that was fueled by rage and ancient magic. To achieve this goal, I tried another method of sketching. Instead of starting with lines, I started with shapes. I used one of our custom subjectively oil painting brushes, specifically the wide scratchy brush, and carved out a very rough silhouette that more accurately described the dragon that I saw in my head. On all fours, she was almost wolf-like in appearance. A massive, shaggy mane rose above her head like tongues of flame, and she was lit from within like a great furnace. She retained her red horns, now larger and growing brightly, as well as her purple, scaly skin. Her petricite armor has shattered and fallen away, replaced by red plating of similar color but organic and of her actual body. Because in her dragon form, Shyvana scrambles around on all fours rather than actually flying, I drew this form as it would appear terrestrially. However, I also quickly sketched out the same design from a top-down perspective and in flight. I would like to see Shyvana fly around a little bit more in her dragon form in-game with an eventual VGU. It would really solidify the fantasy of playing as a dragon, and the other two dragon characters we have can fly. This is a slightly rougher sketch than the other one that I did. Like I said, it was done in only a few hours as I was writing this script, but it's a much better representation of how I'd like Shyvana's dragon form to look. Sometimes it's better to be more gestural and less refined with your sketching. It can allow you to convey emotion a lot more freely, and this dragon design definitely has a lot more emotion than in my first one. With colors and designs finished, it was time to start working on what I consider to be the finished product of this project, a 2D illustration done in the style of a League of Legends in-game character model. This would be the best way for me to convey to others how I imagine a post-VGU Shyvana to look once she has finally made it into the game. League of Legends has this semi-isometric top-down perspective, meaning that all of their characters are seen from above while in-game. When illustrating a mock-up of an in-game character model for League, it does make it feel more convincing if you render it from this perspective. Doing so will help you get an idea of what elements of your design are most seen or not seen at all from the point of view of a player. I actually used Set's pose as a reference to pose Shyvana. I wanted her to exude a similar level of confidence and strength. This pose also would allow me to show off the parts of the character that I'd want a player to see the most: her head, her chest, and her arms. I illustrated all of this against a PNG image of the Rift, the default map that players use in a game of League of Legends, and if I needed to make any modification to her colors in order to have her palette work in harmony with the background, I would be able to recognize that while I worked. Remember, in all cases of illustration, you should consider not just the elements of your character's design, but the context in which your character will be seen. If your vision for the character is to have it set against a backdrop, design that character against the backdrop. Don't wait until the illustration is done to add other elements to the design. Things like color and values and shape are all affected by the environment that the character exists in. After blocking in my rough colors, I spent a good amount of time rendering textures. League character models have a shocking amount of detail put into them, even though the characters are often seen from a considerable distance. It's a tricky balance, including enough detail so that the 3D modelers can create believable forms, but also not including so much detail that elements of the design become more difficult to read from a distance. The easy way to work around these problems is to map out your more visible shapes first, so that you know everything is legible, and be sure that as you add in little details, you continually look at your illustration from a good distance. It also helps to work with layers in an illustration like this. I don't always use a ton of layers when I work digitally, and especially when I'm trying to achieve more traditional looking finished products. This is not one of those cases, and I have no reason not to utilize the full breadth of benefits of working digitally. Shyvana's skin was on one layer, her armor on another, and so on. This allowed me to hone in on details without worrying about smudging over into other elements of the design. It also allowed me to adjust individual components of the character without affecting the rest of it. This is important if you're constantly reevaluating the illustration to see how it looks from different perspectives. Once I had Shyvana finished, there was one final element I wanted to address. Pun intended. Often with these videos, I don't go into any kind of gameplay changes that I'd be interested in including for the character's VGU. Though a true VGU does include a change of kit and gameplay style, I am not a game designer and I am not as interested in changing those elements of a character's design. However, since I love Shyvana so much and I actually play her, I thought I'd include a gameplay change I'd like to see for her in her VGU that would actually affect her visuals. Shyvana's current passive ability makes her stronger every time her team defeats a dragon, but what if instead of just getting a small amount of armor and magic resistance, her other stats changed as well? More damage for every infernal drake, more resistances for every mountain, more lifesteal on ocean drakes. Basically, Shyvana gets enhanced stats from the standard benefits her team gets from dragons, and perhaps it even changes her kit slightly too, like in Wild Rift. I'm sure this would be a balancing nightmare, and again, I don't know enough about game design to give honest input as to whether or not this is even a good idea. I just love to see more objective-based gameplay mechanics in League, like how Belveth gets additional buffs from taking Void objectives. I designed a few ideas for what Shyvana's claws would look like under the effects of different dragon souls. These are a little unfinished, but I wanted to have some visuals to represent my idea. A teacher I had in college always told me, if you have an idea, put it on paper. Why explain what I'm thinking verbally when I can show it to you? So, though I'm missing Chemtech and Hextech, here are a few rough ideas for how Shyvana's visuals and gameplay could change depending on the types of dragons her team defeats. This was a ton of work, and by the time I had finished the 4 different arm designs, I realized why it might be taking the official VGU team so long. Everything I did here really amounts to only the first stage of the character design process for VGUs, and if you factor in all of the other ideas I've had up until this point, it's really taken me over 4 years to get to these conclusions. However, if I really wanted to give you a finished product, as in a functional, new playable character for the game, I would still need to finish the turnaround for her in-game render, finish rendering a turnaround for Shyvana's dragon form, finalize all of the concept for all of her alternate dragon soul weapons, not only for her human form but also for her dragon form, hire someone to design and rig a model for the character, multiple models for 12 different forms as we discussed previously, hire an animator to bring it all to life, again, essentially 12 separate sets of animations, finish designing her kit so that it's balanced and fun to play, write voice lines and special interactions for her, hire a voice actress to deliver those lines, paint splash art for her default skin, and then repeat the process 7 times for all of her other skins. You start to get an idea of where all that money Riot is making goes when you really break down the process of designing or redesigning a character. We can only hope that they're paying all of these people enough for their hard work and that they're not firing the people who are working on projects like this one to make room for other, less substantial changes to the game. As an independent artist without a large team of talented peers to support my work, this is the best that I can do for now. It's a glimpse at yet another possible route that League of Legends could take with their official Shyvana VGU, but I'll let you all decide if it's the direction that you're hoping Shyvana will go. I know some of you have different expectations for a Shyvana VGU, and I'm not here to say anyone's vision of Shyvana is more valid than anyone else's. We all have different tastes, different preferences, and I can assure you, with more certainty than I have in my own mortality, that no matter what the official VGU looks like, some people are going to be happy, and some people are not. Let me know in the comments of this video if the work that I've done for you all today is in line with something that you'd hope to see for the official Shyvana VGU, or if you're hoping they'll take it in another direction. That's all for now, folks. Thank you so much for all of the continued support of our Patreon and channel members. The first supporter-voted video will be coming up soon, ranking the Lord of the Rings characters by how likely they are to speed on the highway. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you made it this far, feel free to throw us a like and subscribe for more art and art-related content. Cheers, and we'll see you all in the next video.